Mr. Speaker.
Louise Upston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm extremely proud to stand and speak in this budget debate and to support the Minister of Finance, Bill English, in the budget that he delivered here 3 weeks ago. It's a budget, Mr. Speaker, that I do believe is delivering for rural and provincial New Zealand. It's delivering for families, small businesses and communities alike. And I can be quite confident in saying that, Mr. Speaker, because as I've been out about in the various small towns and communities in the Taupo electorate, that's what they're telling me. There's some very sensible, very practical solutions where funding is focused, where it actually counts and where it makes a difference for hard-working New Zealanders. Families are the backbone of our communities, Mr. Speaker, that's clear. And this government has continued to support those families. We know that some families are missing out, and that's why we've had a particular focus on those more vulnerable families in this 2013 budget. We are also boosting the support for low-income families who are entirely dependent on the state, Mr. Speaker. There's a couple of things that families up and down the electorate are pretty clear about in terms of what's important to them. It's important to them to be in homes that are warm and dry. They want to be able to know with confidence that they can buy their groceries each week, that their job has got some continuity, and that they have children that have the best education possible. This, Mr. Speaker, is a government that is doing that. And more importantly, the kind of very recurring theme that constituents raise is they want to know that their lives are improving. And that's exactly what this government is doing. By focusing on the economy and where it counts, by getting back into black, that's where we are heading. One of the aspects, Mr. Speaker, that we've heard a lot about in this budget is housing. And we've made improvements in housing in a number of different areas through the home insulation schemes that's making houses warmer and drier, and with legislation that we have initiated to actually make homes more affordable. We all know that for hard-working Kiwi families, it's a dream of theirs to own their own home. And this government is actually being very practical, very sensible, and making changes that make that a reality for those families that, for families living in Auckland, for many of them, it just seems incredibly unattainable right now. So it's great to see that we're actually making progress in the area of affordability of housing. The areas that I'm particularly pleased about, though, Mr. Speaker, are what we're doing for parents. And we've had a number of debates recently here about paid parental leave. Well, this is a government that has actually increased paid parental leave just by $67 a week. And in other countries, if we look at other countries around in the world, they've struggled to keep the entitlements that they have put in place for parental leave and initiatives like that. We've also made sure that the Working for Families program is better targeted, so it actually gets those who need it the most, and I think those are important measures. If we look, for example, across the Tasman, we're often compared to them. They have made cuts in their budget to their support for families. They have made cuts. So not only have we held our entitlements, we've actually managed to increase them. And if you look at Australia, they've removed what they had as their baby bonus, where they paid $5,000 for each newborn child. They've introduced means testing for family tax benefits, and some families in that middle tax bracket that often seem to be hit from all directions are losing entitlements. So I think it's really important, Mr. Speaker, that we have that as a perspective and as a measure where New Zealand is doing so much better than Australia in terms of maintaining the support and growing the support for families. And that's despite the fact that we've had this global financial crisis. And the difference is, this side of the House, we're very clear about having the fix of these issues at the top of the cliff. And we have the numbers battered to us from the opposition parties about the number of children in poverty. So I think it's important for us to just put a bit of perspective around this bit, Mr. Speaker, because after 9 years of surpluses that were at record numbers, 9 years of a Labour government, there were 240,000 children in poverty. So after the worst economic times this century, the number of children has increased, absolutely, but actually they did very little about it. And this is a government that's very practical, very sensible, focusing the support exactly where it's needed, and it's at the top of the cliff rather than at the bottom, catching those vulnerable children when it's far too late. And I think those are the sorts of things that New Zealanders are responding to. If you walk down the street in the Taupo electorate, not one person, Mr Speaker, has complained about something that we are doing in the budget, because they know it's sensible, they know it's practical, we're focusing exactly where we need to. And some of these areas are in health, for example. As a mum, you want to make sure that you are preventing your children from getting sick. So what does that mean? It means things like immunisation, it means getting checks before your child is really ill. Things like cancer checks. We've got more money into prostate cancer checks and breast cancer checks. Practical, sensible solutions. We've got $35.5 million towards diabetes and heart disease checks. We've got significant increases in the number of children being immunised. All of these things, they're smaller numbers than we talk about the $14.5 billion into health, but they are numbers that actually people on the street can understand, and they can see where that difference is being made. If you've got a mum getting cancer treatment sooner, you've got a child that's being immunised, a child's getting surgery without waiting too long, and it's those simple practical things that make a difference for everyday hard-working New Zealanders. And that's why, Mr Speaker, they are supporting this government in droves, because the things that matter to them are the things that we are delivering. They are the results that we're delivering. And I was absolutely staggered, Mr Speaker, in the House yesterday, to have one of the opposition parties raise this, mind-blowing idea about having nurses in schools. Well, there are already in 860 decile 1, 2 and 3 primary and intermediate schools. Hello, we have nurses. They've been there for quite some time. And in addition, this government has put more social workers into schools. And this is what I mean about practical, sensible solutions at the top of the cliff, not waiting for those vulnerable children to become statistics. We are making practical solutions, and whether it's nurses, whether it's social workers in schools, and it bothers me quite a lot that opposition members in this House don't even take the time to figure out what support's already in our schools for our families and for our communities. Another example, very practical solution. We're very clear on this side of the House that the ultimate responsibility for feeding children lies with parents. Absolutely very clear. But also, we do recognise that it takes a village to raise a child. And so here we've come up with a solution that embraces government, that calls on private enterprise, calls on the community, and also the parents of the children involved, by having a partnership with Sanitarium and Fonterra, expanding what we've had in place for quite some time, and so it's quite irresponsible for members to be in this House and talk about the fact that this government's done nothing about providing food for those children in schools, because we've already had programs, we're now extending them. We recognise very clearly if we want to raise students' achievement, we need to focus on the barriers to learning, and clearly children can't learn if they're hungry, so we're taking care of that. Early childhood education, fantastic to see that the numbers are going up. We all recognise that if children have access to education before starting school, they're going to do better. Money into boards of trustees, the school leaders, $2.4 million into connecting communities. And to respond to the comment from the member who spoke prior to me, $19 million to establish partnership schools. Well, as a parent, I actually think it's a really good idea if parents have choice about their children's education. And I don't think that that's a problem. And I'm just staggered to be in this House to hear opposition members who are defending unions and unions' choice, but actually this side of the House believes that parents should have more choice about how their children are educated, be very willing to say if someone's not measuring up, they should be able to choose another school and make sure that their child is getting the results that they deserve. And that's why, Mr Speaker, New Zealanders can see that this side of the House is delivering real results in education, in health, and coming up with initiatives to solve community issues like children attending school without having breakfast. It's very solutions orientated, and that's why, Mr Speaker, I'm enormously proud to be part of the John Key-led government and supporting a budget so well delivered by the Finance Minister, Bill English.
Scott Simpson.
Speaker, it's an enormous pleasure to follow the very capable